Good evening and good morning, Unicorn fam. Welcome to the Crypto Unicorns Weekly Town Hall number 17 with Aron Beierschmitt, Crypto Unicorn CEO and co-founder. I'm joined by my amazing co-host and not birthday boy, Witty Unicorn. Say hi.
Hi.
This is the last Town Hall event for September. Then it's off to the spookiest month of the year. Are you excited for the tricks and treats we prepared for you? We've got Aaron here, ready to spill the tea and spread the hype with Aaron's updates. Hey, Aaron. Good morning.
Good evening, Sparkly. All right, everyone, straight up, I am mainlining Mucinex DM daytime, so I'm gonna try to hit the mute button if I need to fill up a Kleenex or cough, but apologies in advance as I am struggling a bit. All right, let's roll through release schedule stuff. I got a bunch of things to talk through, somewhat winging it this morning. Let's roll with it. So we pushed back the release this week. We just had a few bugs kind of come in late, and again, we don't like to ship on bugs that have had only 24 or 48 hours of QA time. We also think we've found the root of some of these pesky kind of remaining Watcher blockchain-based issues. I think we can resolve them. New target is next week for the release, which will include the breeding points refactor. As discussed, the less breeding points left on a unicorn, the higher energy they have available. That will, of course, coincide with a bit of rebalancing around the meta, where there are higher energy use cases for corns. What you will see next week with those design rebalances is just the start of kind of an overall rebalancing towards incentivizing, obviously, those who've kept their corns and are breeding them out. That sinks more unim and obviously helps overall economy balancing. It'll include the buildings refactor, which should eliminate, again, improve performance and eliminate any of the lingering, oh, a unicorn got stuck somewhere. Obviously, those issues have largely died out, but this should kill them kind of once and for all. And then the highly awaited, especially by me, seed bags farm meta. So now you can craft a seed bag, you can plant that seed bag, and only collect on the farms once every 24 hours instead of having to do it 3 times to kind of maximize efficiency. That's just kind of the first step with that system. As you can imagine, there's potential for higher tier seed bags. Yes, it takes a longer time to kind of craft and things, but you might be able to start to come back and collect on 36-hour, 48-hour, et cetera, like longer and longer kind of timers there. This is all prepping for the release after the one next week, which will be the Quest release. In the Quest release, we're shifting up the meta again on the tier 1 building materials. As I've said before, it doesn't kind of make sense fictionally to have raw wood planks just kind of created out of thin air. So you will have new things to plant and harvest, which become the inputs for the crafting system. That's going to, I think, extend the depth, extend the variety on the farming front, and I think improve the meta overall. And then the final thing for next week is performance improvement. So continued improving of inventory load times. The note here from the team is specifically for players that have a lot of items in their inventory. Shout out Blackfield. Improve farm collection frame rate. Obviously, there's a little bit of hitching around there. That's super annoying. We've crushed that. And then improved performance on the unicorn loading screen. Again, even for the mega wells with 100 plus. Excellent. Going on to the Quest release. Obviously, quests, we're pushing very hard to have this done in time for a Halloween quest, which I think will be super, super exciting. You're going to have the new audio system. We really just have a couple of tracks, not a lot of sound effects, if at all, in the game. And so you're going to start to see a lot of added sound effects. And this begins to prepare us for jousting, which has a kind of enormous need for a lot of sound effects and stuff based on the different hits and walkouts and all that kind of fun stuff. With the Quest release as well, a bunch of additional performance improvements. We're updating our ABI tools to make smart contract deployments and upgrades more efficient, less error prone, We'll also finally have dynamic gas estimation. So right now we obviously have a static tunable value. That doesn't always help, and sometimes it's obviously overestimating the amount of gas that you need. This gas estimation tool, I think, takes the last, I believe it's maybe 30 blocks, and obviously more accurately estimates the amount of gas that you need based on network conditions. I think this is new. I don't think I've said this before, but we're also releasing Stash V 1.5. That implementation has already begun by the engineering team working on the Quest release. So that's going to give you arbitrary stash in and stash out, which we've all wanted for a very long time. I'm pumped to have that. So you'll be able to, say, I just want to stash out, 500 unum or whatever, right? And that will, of course, work in the reverse. I just want to stash in this specific amount. So it takes effectively, obviously this is our own code, but it's similar functionality to the Moonstream tool, but makes it natively in-game via the settings menu. And then lastly, we'll be integrating Chainlink v2, which should vastly improve the on-chain transactions that leverage Chainlink. So that'll be the Quest release. A lot of exciting stuff up and coming on that front. I guess another teaser, we have finalized the design of our next big community event. So the question is, what is next after the Summer of Love? And that's all the alpha I'm going to give you on that front. But I think it's going to be a pretty exciting event. It leans into those who have been really trying to breed the highest quality corns and will award those who are doing such. We also have what we're calling world firsts. If you are the first to hit a certain milestone, a certain requirement, you are going to get a very special reward, as well as that specific corn will be memorialized forever in the Hall of Fame. What is next? Shadow corn staking. Perfect fucking timing for Halloween. I am so very pumped about this event. I saw it the other day. Sorry to let the F word slip. I know some users don't like me doing that, and I avoided it last town hall, but it slipped out. Shadow corn staking is going to be incredible. I'm really pumped about it. It'll be a multi-week event. We'll be live streaming portions of it. There'll be a ton of kind of preparatory rewards for those who are looking at, getting geared up for Act 2, the war in the Dark Forest. Also, I need to check through Slack real quick. We have a snapshot date that I'll be announcing here momentarily. Somebody help me. Sparkly, can you find that date and time and announce it?
Well, I'm on it. Okay.
We
This is for the S word. Is it for that?
Yeah, for you have to have a shadow corn hatched prior to this date.
Okay. Give me a second.
We have too many Slack channels, everyone, so that's a problem here for us all. Maybe I can find it in my threads. One
Um,
of the billion threads a day.
Fluffy and I are frantically searching. Give me a minute.
It's all right. We
I
put you
mean,
on the
we
spot.
could always try to
Yeah,
find
we'll
it
announce it
later.
later.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to be a bit vague. There'll be obviously some rewards that are essential to progression, but we have also made an enormous amount of progress on doing IRL rewards and being able to ship those rewards pretty much anywhere globally unless you're in a conflict zone. And so I'm very excited to start to have some really kind of cool things on that front. What else? Staking V2. So we're very close, been working closely with the Vault team to effectively create and upgrade or create a new staking contract. The crux of staking V2 is boosted rewards. If you are actively playing the game, you will receive boosted rewards above and beyond someone who is just passively staking RBW and not participating in gameplay, not participating in voting, etc. Right? Those who might be upset about that, it's pretty easy to come in, start playing the game, start voting actively. These things, of course, are going to be tracked via badges. Those badges give you XP. The more XP you have, the higher the boosted rewards you will get on the staking front. So I'm very, very excited about that. We've talked, I think, very closely with many members of the player community on this feature,
Yes.
and it will, I think, set us up for success because at the end of the day, passive staking, fine, active gameplay, great, and staking plus active gameplay and voting is the best. And we want to reward that player archetype the most because you're kind of contributing across the board very holistically to crypto unicorns. Um, I think the last thing on my list is lore building. Alongside kind of Shadowcorn staking, we're going to be running a series of events in which you, the player community, are helping us create the backstory and flesh out the high level conflict behind Shadowcorns and unicorns, where they all come from, why are they fighting, all of this kind of fun stuff. Ultimately, what that is getting built into is they kind of call it an executive brief, which we are going to vote on, memorialize our canon, via snapshot governance vote. I'm going to then take that and put that in front of roughly 15 writers in Hollywood on both the comic book side as well as the TV series side. So I think this is the first, maybe outside of Forgotten Runes and Wizards Cult, in which the community is really generating the lore. And then we're going to be going out and finding a writer to kind of take that into a full-on, again, TV show as well as a comic book. Um, there's more stuff to announce there in the future, but a bunch of this is me really pushing on, again, building out our brand, building out our IP, finding ways to get crypto unicorns out and into the real world in a place where you may not even know about NFTs. You may not even know about blockchain, but you can go out and buy something for yourself, for a significant other, for a child. That's going to be awesome. I think we have this incredible brand. And I mean, I'll just kind of tease it. I have reconnected with an old friend of mine that I met running my first company. They are now doing like they did all the toys for Among Us globally. They're working with Cool Cats. They're working with V Friends. And so again, I'm very, very pumped to have found some incredible kind of partners on the merchandising and toy front, as well as making great progress on the comic book side as well as the TV series. And the root of the comic book and the TV series is going to be the lore document that the community generates. And if you're looking for a badge with high XP, it's going to be one of the lore generation badges, given you're actually creating the canon for crypto unicorns. Oh, that was a lot. Sparkly, I think I'm done and we can roll into the Anon questions.
The teasers never end, huh? I'm insanely excited for so many things, especially the Halloween themed things and the user content. I could almost be so excited. By the way, we found the date. So the snapshot date is going to be on October 7, 11:59 p.m. PST. So that's the snapshot time for it.
Thank you for finding that.
Gotcha. Okay. We're stopping at the end of the hour, so heads up, everybody. Let's get this town hall started. We have a 3 questions per person rule. My cat is wild. If a question has been answered previously, you'll have to ask something else. To ask a question in voice, please press the request to speak button. The button looks like a raised hand. You can queue up at any time. Once we accept your request, you'll see a green bar at the top of your Discord. Click accept to begin speaking. When you're unmuted, feel free to ask your question. We also have questions from members of the Unicorn fam who couldn't make it on stage for various reasons. It's on the Town Hall Questions channel. Take note that we prioritize spoken questions over written ones. You can also head on stage and ask any question that you may find on that channel. First up are the anonymous questions. You can submit this too on the Town Hall Questions channel. We accept a maximum of 5 anonymous questions per town hall. Okay, so first question is, do you have plans for any event on Halloween? That's pretty much answered already.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean the Shadow Corn staking event will still be running. That's definitely I mean it's awesome that that kind of lined up with October. We are planning a Halloween specific quest once the questing system launches. So assuming that hits timing correctly, yeah, there'll effectively be kind of like two events on that front that are Halloween specific.
All right. Okay, the next anonymous question is 3 weeks ago, you mentioned that some YouTubers or influencers within a few weeks could release a video about crypto unicorns. Do we have any progress on that?
Yep. One contract signed, one close, and yeah, a big part of this is kind of teeing them up where you're going to start to see more and more content uh, in the lead up to jousting, and then of course going really hard once the jousting feature is launched for probably 30 to 60 days after. So we're kind of ramping them up slowly on that front. But you're going to start to see, well, you may or may not. It kind of depends on if you're on crypto Twitter or YouTube and stuff. We're going to put some ad dollars behind the CGI trailer just to, again, be focused on awareness and, again, very concentrated effort on, showing those ads on crypto specific kind of YouTube content as well as showing those ads to people on kind of crypto Twitter. Um, and again, that's you're going to see that start to light up here in the very near future.
All right. So if anybody has follow-up questions to their anonymous questions, please just reach out to me so I can read them out. Next up, do you think now is the perfect timing to bring in massive players into crypto unicorns when the market is down? Is right now the best DAO harvesting season?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when the barrier to entry is low, it's a good time to onboard players in. And if things turn up and move up and to the right, like it's great. Everybody's kind of feeling good. We get around some of the challenges where, people were coming in, max hype in, January and February at very, very high cost. And that sets up a certain expectation. And so, no, I think it's one of the reasons that I'm kind of most excited to be kicking off our marketing and growth efforts. And we're very fortunate to kind of be in a position with our treasury and everything that we've kind of built together to date to be able to begin deploying that at a time where many projects are very strained and are not going to have the ability to kind of go out and grow and acquire new users. I've had several people kind of reach out to me and ask, hey, should we wait until kind of jousting starts? And the answer is if you've got a player that you think is that isn't currently in CU that you think would enjoy the farm gameplay, do it. Go out, grab them. It's I think it's a good time to bring new people in. And then of course in the lead up to jousting, the nice thing is, hey, you need one corn that is going to have a reasonable opportunity to go in and play jousting. And the reality is, yes, there will be some classes that are going to have a slight advantage on that front, but because certain joust tournaments will be class specific, you can really start with any corn on that front. And so, given the launch of jousting is going to give us something really phenomenal because you only need one corn to come in and start to play. And I think that reduced barrier to entry and on ramp or smoother player on ramp is going to be great. So I don't want anyone holding back on bringing someone into the community now if they're going to be interested in playing the farm sim. Let's go ahead and do that. And then obviously, I think in the lead up to jousting, that's when I think we're really going to want to go wide and obviously, bring over refugees from Zedrun and Pegaxi and DeRace for sure.
All right. Okay, next question. When Shadowcorn CGI trailer?
Yeah, so the sequence of CGI trailers, the next one will be Jousting, and then we will do the Shadowcorn CGI trailer in advance of the of Act 2. So that's kind of the sequence on that front. Obviously, the lore generation event in October is going to be critical to that because it actually sets up, again, the fiction. We're not 100% certain what we want to showcase on the Shadowcorn CGI trailer, but I kind of like the idea of using it as a way to kind of introduce the world fiction and maybe show the lead up to the cataclysm, and then obviously maybe like kind of do a replay of like the unicorn showing up in the forest and finding the eggs, which was Act One. And that's kind of the idea that I have in my head. But we need you guys to help us kind of flesh out the fiction on that front.
All right. Okay. The last question. Will Crypto Unicorns consider setting up a proper marketing team to assist in Crypto Unicorn's upcoming growth phase?
I
Hmm.
take no offense to that question, but my response is, Brian Akaka, our CMO, ran a very successful mobile marketing agency for almost a decade. I've managed millions of dollars of performance marketing budget myself. And Eric Seifert, who is our advisor, you can go look him up. He's on the Laguna website. He's been an advisor since day one. I actually worked with him on at Beyond Games on the Sylvester Stallone title. Eric Seifert is the expert in performance marketing, period. He writes a mobile dev memo, which every single performance marketing person in free to play mobile goes and reads. They spend $10,000 or so to go to courses that he puts on. And he ran marketing at Wooga, at Rovio, at Network. So we do have a proper marketing team in place. We just haven't spent any money against it yet. And I try to continue to reinforce that what we have achieved to date has been legitimately organic. And now that we begin to turn on the marketing flywheel, my expectation is, that we start to really see some success on that front.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Even if you have Mucinex, the team, the community is really liking your voice right now. So
Oh God.
Shauna Unicorn says, looks like Aaron is going to shout ooh woo today, which is
It's going to be a
endearing.
little deeper, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Okay, let's invite Jujak to the stage for a spoken question. Please come over, Jujak. Hey,
Hello, hello.
hi, good morning.
Long time no see. Um, I have two questions, please. The first one about the seed bags. Could we have some more info on the crafting needs, crafting times, and generally how they work before the launch so we can prepare our strategy?
That's alpha Jujak that I'm not going to let you pull out of me today. Um, I can tell you that it's gonna a lot of this feature is very focused on kind of smoothing out the experience of farming, right? We recognize that if you're trying to kind of maximize efficiency and you're doing it 3 times a day, that's difficult. I've barely been able to do that myself. I usually just get 2 sessions, 2 plant and harvest sessions. And then, of course, I've got my kind of crafting system running, where I'm checking in maybe every 5 hours on certain things, right? And then returning next day. And so we wanted to try with seed bags to kind of improve that experience. So yeah, there'll be a certain amount of seeds, obviously, that need to get input. Rope and unim, I believe, are the inputs to the tier 1 seed bags. And I don't think you're looking at more than maybe a 6-hour timer. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote tweet me. But those are kind of the inputs in the system. And then, of course, you plant 24 hours later, you come back and you harvest, and it's effectively the equivalent. It, of course, includes a range, just like planting a single seed is, but the range is exactly what it would have been had you come back 3 times a day. And then I think, particularly if everyone likes that system, I don't know why you wouldn't. The expectation is we'll probably do higher tier seed bags, which will take more material inputs, longer time crafting, but allow you to maybe do 36, 48 hours, maybe even as much as like 72, if you want to kind of extend that. And then with the Quest release, again, we're kind of creating, instead of going and crafting raw wood planks, you're actually going to need to effectively plant, for example, a sapling. That sapling grows, you cut it down, right? Now you've got the raw wood planks as part of the kind of input there. So I think that's going to shake up the farming meta nicely, give you more choices to make on that front. But when that launches, you'll also have the equivalent of sapling seed bags as well, right? So we're not taking kind of a step back where suddenly you've got to go 3 times a day. Again, on that front, you'll be able to kind of do it once a day if you've progressed far enough in the crafting loop to be able to craft those seed bags.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. And the second thing that I wanted to ask about is the team looking into the situation when level 6 cards tend to consistently give less rewards than level 5 gathering cards? I have seen this in my accounts consistently. Level 6 cards tend to give much less rewards than level 5 cards. And I don't know why. Is it something local on my side, or is the bug that somebody else encountered also?
I don't think it is a bug. I think it is the fact that the design tuning on that has too much overlap in the bands between level 5 and level 6. The gathering card is problematic for us. We are likely going to have to make some pretty big changes to its meta, especially post the release of quests. So we have heard that feedback from certainly from you now and other players as well. And I continue to encourage the design team, and they are actively looking at rebalancing the gathering card. I think you're going to see things where the bands potentially get a lot bigger. So the reward band is much wider, but you have this opportunity for really big wins on occasion. We're also thinking about ways to make that kind of higher and higher risk. Obviously, we will continue to make changes as the Shadowcorns grow in strength that begin to kind of create some friction on that point. Effectively, the Shadowcorns are breaking out of the Dark Forest as we're going to start to see more and more. And no one's really ever, at least in my mind, asked, where do unicorns go when they gather? And that's a very interesting question to maybe ask yourself and ponder on. But we're going to be kind of weaving that narrative and that fiction into this as we start to make changes to the gathering card. But your specific thing is noted. I do not believe it is a bug. I think it is just the way design has tuned it. There's too much overlap in those bands. And we are actively looking at a rebalance.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
See
much.
you in the
Appreciate it.
next. See you in the next town hall.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jujak.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Jack, see you next town hall. Okay, let's have a written question. Ready?
Backfield. Axie's main project right now is the land gameplay. They have hundreds of millions of funding available. It surely is a couple of months away, but if CU can make a game in that time span, they can probably too. What do you think of them?
It was interesting to see what they showed off to the community. As game developers, it's one thing to kind of show off a demo. It's another thing to have a fully tuned and balanced experience. Anyone here can go to the Sky Mavis careers site, and you'll notice that at the very bottom, there has been a career rec or an open job rec for a senior land gameplay designer. And they specifically call out the need for 4X strategy experience in the space. And, you'll notice that it's been live for 8 going on 9 months now. So that's a little interesting. Obviously, Philip from Niantic, phenomenal designer, but Pokemon Go is very, very different from a 4X strategy game. So there's something interesting behind that. And again, we'll see. We'll see. My expectation is the beta comes out, looks good, and it plays good. I think when we look at it, Jeff, our design director, and I, when we've kind of looked at it, there's some very open questions around how they're going to weave all of the crafting and material kind of collection meta together. I think they've got a cool kind of auto battle system based on my understanding of what they've proposed that I think is very interesting. In some ways, it kind of lines up a bit with how we're thinking about post Tribes release and the Shadowcorn raid gameplay. And so, yeah, we'll see. I mean, Sky Mavis have certainly raised a lot of money. Much of that did go to replenishing the bridge after the hack. But, I mean, I saw the video on Twitter. They've spent a lot of money on a nice headquarters. It's, we'll see. We'll see. There's certainly room for multiple land gameplay titles, and we're one of the few that's actually live. By the time I think they're out of beta, well, another thing too I would call out is I saw a pamphlet from them that showed a 4-year kind of roadmap of land gameplay. I would encourage people to kind of look at that, see what they're launching with, and then how much left they have to add and how many years of time that's going to take. And that's actually a real concern that I would have designing that experience, because one of the major challenges in Forex strategy is if you start land gameplay and you have a subset of players that are there day one, they're going to obviously progress and progress and progress and progress. And if there's not conflict and kind of PvP and destruction and stuff in place, they're going to get really far along. And what ultimately happens in Forex, even with destruction and real loss, is there's this like calcification and stratification of the world map, where the players who've been there the longest, who've spent the most money, are going to they're very hard to defeat, if not impossible. And ultimately that leads to the death of that world map. And the only solution anyone in the space has really come up with is they start doing kingdom v kingdom and they kind of mash everybody together, right? And so, at the end of the day, what they are taking on is incredibly ambitious relative to what they have released as a game company. And I do have a little bit of a concern when they've had a senior land gameplay designer job rec live for 9 months and don't seem to have found anyone to come in there and take that on. Philip, again, I think he's phenomenal. He's done a great job of kind of ramping in, engaging with the community. But again, he came from Niantic and Pokemon Go, and not with a kind of Forex background. So our team obviously has a lot of Forex experience. Jeff Witt has been doing this for a very long time. He's, shipped and launched multiple titles that have done 100 million plus on mobile. And so I feel pretty confident that we can, based on the fact that we have gameplay live today, continue to execute, build features in depth, and stay out ahead. And it's definitely not lost on us. My co-founder and I, and Katrina, our product director, we talk about this all the time. Like, we recognize that there is a window, and we can't just sit back and not continue to ship features. But given the cadence we've got back on, I guess I should say, I'm very, very confident that we'll continue to be competitive in the market. So sorry, that was a great question. A bit of a rant. My apologies.
No, that was good. That was good. Blackfield says, that sounds amazing, Aaron. And it really sparked a lot of conversation in general and memes. Okay, Biddy, can we have another written question?
Sure, it's still from Blackfield. How do you measure daily active users? What's the current amount of daily active users?
Yeah, so we have an SDK. It's called Delta DNA. It was bought by Unity, so it's kind of the easiest analytics SDK to integrate, given Unity bought it, right? So anytime someone connects a wallet, logs into the game, we track a DAO, right? We do not track DAO based on somebody who connects a wallet, doesn't have assets, right? So they actually have to have an account. We typically see between 1,500 and 2K DAO a day. When we open up our analytics, our aggregate analytics bucket to the public, or to anyone that signs up, y'all will finally be able to kind of see the DAO metrics that we see. Obviously, if you're looking at DApp Radar, that is only tracking on chain. And so it would only pick up a DAO if you did a blockchain transaction on that day. And so that's why you're going to see maybe 500 or 800 DAO on DApp Radar, or even less sometimes. And that's just a result of, hey, you don't necessarily have to do a blockchain transaction for every single thing inside the game. So we're excited to kind of get the aggregate data and metrics pulled out so that the community can kind of more actively track that as we do today internally.
Okay, Blackfield has a follow-up. Do you distinguish between IPs when logging in?
DAO we consider to be an account. So let's say, so if you are playing across multiple accounts, we are going to count that as DAO, I believe. Actually, I could be wrong about that. I don't know. I think there's a designer in here. Corbin, if you want to ping me with an answer, he's our point on working with the analytics team on that front. So I'll have to get back to you on that question, Blackfield.
All right. Okay, we have a question from Delete E. Can someone ask when we'll be expanding to more than 9 lands?
We have begun testing that. It got a little sidetracked in the push for this release. So, I would expect it to be top of mind once we get the release next week out the door. Right now, I believe the grid side goes up to 50 by 50, and I've shout out to Katrina. She was like, "Well, let's just test 50 lands and see what happens." We do not plan to open that up that wide. I think we are considering 4 by 4 or 16 total as the next step up, pre neighborhoods and tribes. A big part of that is, you can kind of take the million total land plots, divide it by that number, and kind of say, oh, well, this is kind of the maximum amount of accounts or DAO, right, that would be a part of the farm sim. And there's a little bit of a trade-off there where, especially with tribes and neighborhoods, how many large players can kind of put together. And so we're kind of running all that. There's both, I guess I should say, technical and design considerations that are going into that. But right now we just need to test performance. Again, a lot of people kind of assumed when we were having some performance issues that it was the 3D nature of the game. It really wasn't. Our server was sending way too much data down to the client. Things were chugging, especially given we are constrained to a single thread on WebGL on browsers. So again, we're going to test that and do some performance testing and see what we think the limits of the web browser are going to be. And then that will help inform our decision. But it is kind of my expectation around the time of either the Quest or the Jousting release that we are going to allow, at least, an expansion of land per account.
All right. A follow-up question to that. Is there some sort of cadence for this? Like maybe one new land per month?
Likely we would update it, to a 4 by 4 and just say go for it. I don't think we would do 1 by 1, though that is kind of interesting. Maybe we could build an event around that and say once a certain amount of DAO have actually used that much land, we push it over the top. I don't know. Need to think about it with the design team. There's certainly some flexibility there, and we could absolutely be as granular as saying one land at a time. But I think right now the thought is more grid size, right? Where it's a 3 by 3 right now, great. Move it to a 4 by 4, let you go up to 16 is kind of the current thinking.
Right. Yeah, and I can also recall some events that we'll have in the future that makes use of land tiles. So that'll be interesting to tie up to the lore. Okay, we have Drewaholic. With the marketplace option still not resolving player issues, what are the initiatives in making the marketplace work for every player?
An active conversation with the OpenSea team to get them to finally listen to our unlock and lock events. So I don't want to get people's hopes up because OpenSea has failed us before, but we are getting active engagement directly with their senior engineering team on this issue. So, I think if that is solved, we've certainly removed the malicious actors and smoothed out the on-ramp where players come in, don't understand why things are failing. I won't argue. I'm certain that has seen some player drop off in that early portion of the funnel as they onboard. That is kind of my focus right now, because I think it's the quickest thing that resolves the situation for us. So again, I'm very hopeful there. I appreciate that OpenSea is actively trying to work on it. One of the nice things is, and the thing that I'm seeing kind of across the board, is in this crypto winter, OpenSea is very much realizing that static profile pics are not the future and that games are the future. So I hope that that trend continues and that we do get support from that team in listening to lock and unlock events, which would solve the listed locked unicorns and land, or listing locked unicorns and land. So that's kind of where my focus is. If they fail us again, it will return back towards, likely a custom marketplace solution.
Okay, Drew, I'll ask her other questions too, but here's another question from Brock the Rock, which is kind of related. Why is the creator fee for Haku set higher than OpenSea, which is 3%, compared to OpenSea's 2.5%? Haku stepped up to meet community needs with zero cost to the treasury, and yet LG seems to be favoring OpenSea by taking a smaller fee and linking to OpenSea on the various crypto unicorns web pages.
Yeah, I mean, this is a part of it. You have to look at, is Haku actually driving us any volume? I'm not seeing it. If somebody is and we're missing it, which would be surprising, like point it out. I respect the hustle. I respect that they came in and did this, but they are trying to grow their own audience by integrating IPs like us. And this is why he set the restriction on, hey, let's get a certain number of assets listed and things, right? Because he's trying to build his own marketplace in his business. And it's a little bit like, well, OpenSea is the eBay of the space. They drive the most volume, they drive the most traction. We're in with their engineering team trying to get them to fix things for us. And what do you think the OpenSea team is going to do if I go over here and suddenly start sending everybody to Haku and point everything at Haku? So like this is very much I would ask that the community trust in my partnership and business development acumen on this front. Again, it would be no question if Haku was the largest marketplace on Polygon. They are not. They are not even close to OpenSea. And if we have a path to resolving the issue on OpenSea as a starting point, that is going to be best. I am separately working on an idea that I've had with another entrepreneur in the space where what if we could remove the onboarding friction by effectively allowing somebody to make a bundled purchase of, let's just say a common plot purchase. So here's a common land, 2 corns, and enough RBW and Unum to get the breeding game started, right? And you could go in and make that purchase with 1 click. I'm very interested in that. That feels like an IP that smooths out the on-ramp, and again, gets you playing in one transaction, or at least gets you to connect your wallet and begin to play the game in one transaction. So that's how I'm thinking about a lot of this stuff. Obviously, you're just getting the raw, off-the-cuff comments. Again, the Haku guy I respect the hustle and what he has come in here and done. But again, they're not driving volume. I can't be responsible for growing his business to get them to the point where they can actually defeat OpenSea. That's his responsibility as an entrepreneur, building a marketplace tool. And what do I need? What do we all need in a marketplace? Volume. The 3% creator fee, I have no idea why they set it at that. I think they're trying to incentivize us to go and use Haku because the treasury would make more. Again, I respect that hustle. I understand that strategy. But at the end of the day, it's not driving volume. It's not driving volume right now.
Okay. Well, I'm sure the community appreciates that honesty. Let's have another question from Drewaholic. What is the quantitative easing philosophy or rationale for Unum, as in buying them back? Are there other token case studies supporting this model, or is it something experimental?
I would say it's experimental. I think you have seen situations of protocol-owned liquidity and bootstrapping protocol-owned liquidity in the DeFi space that have had varying levels of success. It's important to understand that we're not doing a buyback and burn. We're buying it, and probably on roughly a monthly cadence, we will fill the pool. So we'll add, we'll pair USDC against the Unum that we've purchased and add additional liquidity into that pool. I've kept this is the September 15th was the first moment that we began to provide liquidity, right? And I could have just minted Unim and gotten some USDC and filled the pool that way. I think that's not the right way to do it. I would rather, again, market buy and fill the pool liquidity. And I want to get it to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then we think about it as a factor of DAO. The higher DAO, obviously the more liquidity that you want. And I don't necessarily want to add a ton of liquidity right now if there's not a lot of DAO growth. And if you think about it, we could have, a lot of people right as we launched were kind of requesting or asking that we provide liquidity for Unim and USDC. We chose not to. Part of the reason was the market was collapsing. And now we're in this spot where Unim's the lowest it's ever been. Obviously, it is going upwards as us and other people have been buying Unim, which is great to see. And so it feels like the right time to do this. I've been thinking a lot about this. Again, no one really has this figured out, but you have to treat these game economies very similar to like a real world economy because you can enter and exit it permissionlessly. It's actually way more fluid than a normal economy, right? Because if I'm like trying to go from USD to pounds, I've got to go through like 6 different middlemen, and you don't have that in the space. And so it's been discussed before. We are the central bank in this ecosystem. And when the economy is in a rough shape, you quantitatively ease, right? And we can certainly get into arguments around how that doesn't work in the real world. The difference, and this is so funny to me, the difference between us, what we're doing right now versus Jay Powell at the central bank in the United States is they mint money out of thin air. He pulls a lever, and all of a sudden there's another $1 trillion in circulation, right? We are at least buying Unim that was earned via gameplay, via proof of work in the game itself, and then of course filling protocol-owned liquidity. So back to the original question, I do view this as a bit of an experiment. It's not something that I'm like 100% we're going to do this forever and ever. But I've had some players reach out in support of this who've been very big supporters of the project. I think are very like more DeFi native than many of the player base. And generally, we think that this is a good way to build and increase protocol-owned liquidity. And increase the size of those pools over time. And you're going to see kind of a perfect storm here because we're going to begin the direct-to-consumer marketing plans. You're going to see awareness start to build with this new the event that's going to follow the Summer of Love, right? The new event that I teased this morning. It's going to be kind of this perfect storm, which I think is going to tee us up very nicely in the lead up to the launch of Jousting. Any follow-up to that? This is a really great question. I want to make sure I answer.
This is your chance, community. Okay, I'm pretty sure there are some members of the community who want to ask follow-up questions, but they're asleep or they're in a different time zone. There's been a lot of interest about this topic. But for now, Joaholic says, thank you, sir, appreciating it. Okay, let's ask his other question. What is the rebalancing principle of CU? For instance, flower seeds are increasing in price relative to other seeds. Are we looking to rebalance towards a fair market value?
That's a great question. We kind of have to, what is the fair market value? One of the things that we, and I believe that this experiment has proven to be true. We really didn't know how the RMP would go because it's live, it's seeding the liquidity in these pools. We're not making any comment on what the price of any of these assets are. It's ultimately up to the free market to decide. And so certain commodities and certain assets that are spiking, I love to see. To me, that is the economic game working. There was a very smart set of players that, had been stockpiling dewdrops in anticipation of players kind of hitting the next tier of progression. And they did very well selling those dewdrops as the price increased, into the market. And I really love to see that. So seeing certain seeds spike or drop, we don't react to that very much because again, it's kind of it's let the free market decide. I think a lot of what we're still figuring out, and this was discussed in the last town hall, is the idea of like, what is the cadence at which we add new, the higher tier boosters, some of these new materials to the marketplace? How do we go about doing that in a way that, again, doesn't just have us minting the soft currencies out of thin air, but has players crafting and spending them, to kind of build the liquidity on that side. That to me is the next thing that we have some ideas on. We're going to flesh them out, and you're going to start to see those plans take place in the next 2 months, I would say. And that'll be kind of the next level of the experiment. I think the base level is we have a real marketplace where the price of these commodities and assets is free floating based on supply and demand. And I really like to see spikes in price and stuff that show, oh wow, there's a real need for that commodity on this day. Anyone that had excess of that commodity and a corn that they can send to market is going to be in a position to capitalize on that. And that is really the economic sim that I used to describe as the engine of the game economy, right? The really beautiful thing as we scale, we start to add all these battle loops, right? Like back to the original pitch, we're building an arcade in the metaverse. You bring your corns into the arcade. At the center of that arcade is a very deep economic farm sim that will get higher and higher risk over time as the shadow corns break out and start doing raids and things. And then you're going to have all these arcade cabinets around. Those arcade cabinets need commodities from the farm sim, for example, like the potions for jousting, as well as entry fees in UNIM and RBW. Which again, you're either market buying those entry fees, which is great, or you're needing to farm and produce the materials and assets or those entry fees off of the farm. And so generally, I think the experiment around RMP is playing out. I haven't seen anyone else do it. I'm not sure any other team would take the risk that we did in doing it that way. It's actually this connects into like Axie and how they're going to do. They don't seem to be going the route that we did with this 24/7 AMM in the game. They seem to be like they're the market maker, kind of buying and selling and buying and selling. And to me, that makes their economy weaker. It makes it far less real, where our economy is kind of real, even though there's this portion of it that's kind of off chain. So anyway, that's a great question. I love getting the kind of economy questions. It's really where we're focused for sure.
Confirmed. Aaron likes the economy people. Now we know his favorites. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Biddy, do you have a good written question over there?
The last one from Blackfield. You mentioned an actual event for the Unum LP, not just setting it up. Was that scratch, or did we get that wrong? Some of us were expecting maybe a leaderboard event like in the vault for the RBW LP.
The challenge with that event, we haven't scrapped it 100%, but it did get backburnered. Straight up, and the question that I would ask the wider community is, would you participate in that event if you weren't getting additional Unim, or you were getting things like loot boxes that would potentially pay out, but might not, right? Because I think the worry is we set up an event like that and we're adding Unim rewards. All we're doing is kind of kicking the can down the road on the inflation question, right? The breeding event, I think, was a great example of it drove a lot of Unim burn. Yes, ranking up, you were getting Unim back, but it was kind of a rebate. And so we're concerned that we would put out leaderboard rewards that players wouldn't go after. Now, if you're like, hey, you throw keystones out there and you throw Maybe we market by some shadow corn eggs, we throw them out there, right? Like, and you're like all for an event like that. I'd be really curious to hear from members of the community if that would be exciting, because the worry is if we just do kind of a generic fill the pool, here's a bunch of UNIM or even RBW for staking and locking up UNIM LP tokens. It just felt like that was not going to be in the best interest of the long-term health of the game economy versus what we're doing, where we're taking on the risk of LP and we're filling the pool kind of over time with these market buys. So it's not entirely scratched, but we keep kind of coming back to the drawing board and going, what are alternative incentives for participating in that? And I think the challenge is, of course, when you're LPing, you are taking on risk of impermanent loss and everything that kind of comes along with that. So anyway, Blackfall, I'd love to hear from you and other members of the community that have an opinion on it in terms of how to structure that event, because we're certainly open to doing it, but we want to do it in a way that's going to obviously set the economy up for success and not necessarily kind of kick the can down the road on inflation or some supply overhang, if that makes sense.
Well, Aaron, this reminds me. So people are really keen to share their opinions about events and things that we have going on, crypto unicorns. So somebody surfaced a question about having badges for contributors that suggest, um, uh, things for these kinds of events. How do you feel about that?
They're going to be, I mean, 100% basically, yes. There are going to be more and more badges. We're going to be doing retroactive badges for those who've been voting. Yeah, we're going to lean very heavily on that system because it both will play into the player profile, player avatar, player level stuff, as well as the staking V2. Which something I didn't mention, we've actually figured out a system for delegation. So if you are multi-accounting, you can basically designate your staking wallet and have rewards feed into that. Now badges are, it's one badge, so you can't scale that across a bunch of accounts or bot it. But it will allow you to do multi-accounting, if you have like 5 or 6 accounts or whatever it may be. That's something I think I forgot to say during the staking V2 update. But yeah, badges are going to be more and more important overall and very, very tied into the system.
Thanks for letting us know. That's the carrot. I'm pretty sure that everybody's super excited for that. Do we have one more question, Betty?
Okay, let me grab one for you. This
Okay.
is from Jackie Ace. Could you follow up on our discussion regarding having all items in RMP with a crafting event? Have you talked to the design team about this?
Yes, and that's kind of what I was mentioning just a bit ago. You will certainly see a version of that in the next 30 to 60 days. We have a plan on that front. We've gotten I mentioned, I forget if it was the town hall last week or the prior week, but I'd mentioned that we've figured out a way to effectively, like the Season of Love leaderboard was just pulling on chain data, right, and populating. We figured out a way to do those leaderboards, but pulling data from the game itself, right, the off-chain data. So we could feasibly run like a, hey, let's craft tier 4 plus boosters, right? You get all these points, and we're again, you would craft them and you would effectively spend them. So that's the bit of feature work that's going to need to happen. But that event gets triggered, you get points, right? We scale it, and we hit our target, and then boom, we'll seed the RMP with the new item, right? And in this case, we didn't mint the assets from thin air. They actually came from the community. So we had all the inputs and the syncs that kind of went into that. And I think that's a much better way to list a new item in the RMP that really balances the economy and creates a fun event. So yeah, we're very close to that. And my expectation is you see that in the next 30 to kind of 60 days, looking out to the next few releases that we have planned.
30 to 60 days. Oh man, so much is happening the next 30 to 60 days. I hope y'all are excited because I am.
Well, it is. It's like to double click on that really quickly. Like it is going to be very exciting because a lot of these systems, like quests, is this massive feature, but it gives us a lot of flexibility to run all kinds of quests that have all kinds of requirements that have. And then we can add to that and do things like quest chaining. So there's like you got to do this quest first, and then you can do this quest and this quest and this quest, and maybe we have a reward for the first person to get through that quest chain, right? And it's going to give us a lot of flexibility on that front. Then we'll have all these live leaderboards running, and I think it will just really increase the engagement and just excitement around coming in and doing things that can be a bit of a grind when we're just talking about the farm sim itself. And then that really starts to tee us up into these jousting tournaments, which I think are just going to be an enormous amount of fun and again add the first kind of live real-time battle loop to the game itself. So between the lore generation events, there's just a lot of fun stuff happening. Like I really want, and I think we already have a very phenomenal community. I hear this a lot from people, other entrepreneurs in the space who come into our Discord, and they're just stunned. It's very different vibe than most of the projects in the space, and I want CU to be a place you can come and hang out and have fun. And we're going to lean more and more and more into that in ways that I think are just going to be um, really enjoyable. And so I'm looking forward to it. All of these features that we're kind of shipping now are going to give us the ability to build a lot of really cool live operation events on top of them. And again, extend them kind of, further and further and further over time. So yeah, it's a really, really exciting time, Sparkly. I hope that's coming across despite uh, all the mucus I'm dealing with.
No, it really is coming across, and I'm super excited for it as well. The CM team has their own little thing going on, own little big thing, and it's gonna happen next month. So I hope that the community is excited for it. I know that all of you enjoyed community engagement with all the events that we had before, and we're planning to bring something like that back, except better. So please watch out. So that concludes our weekly town hall number 17. We'll see you next week for weekly town hall number 18. We'll post a recording of this town hall on our socials if you would like to give it a re-listen. Don't forget to share this with your friends and fellow Unicorn fam who couldn't make it. If you have more burning questions, feel free to reach out on our support channels, the Mod Support channel and the Ask the Depths channel. This has been Sparkly Unicorn with co-host Witty Unicorn. Good morning, good night, and see you in game, Unicorn fam.
Ooh,
Ooh,
ooh.
woo. Hey, Witty.
What?
Happy not birthday.
Yeah, it's still in
Are,
Feb.
are
Who
you
spread
are you
that
gonna
fake
give
news?
me Are you gonna give me not birthday lumpiang Shanghai? Are we gonna have a not birthday party?
Okay, sure.
Are
This
we gonna get
weekend.
not birthday drunk?
Yes, this
Hey
weekend.
yo! Are you gonna play not birthday songs on your not birthday drum?
It's really not my birthday though.
Yeah, that's why I keep saying not birthday. What, you think I made it like ironically? I mean, if it's not your birthday, I'm saying it's not your birthday. I mean, me have a sense of humor. No,
Yeah,
no. Oh, how about I give you a jar of that really nice garlic for your not birthday? You're
yeah,
accepting gifts, right?
yeah. I wish the community could actually taste that.
Yeah, like so Vinny has this favorite thing. He shared it with his band and then he shared it with me while I was recording stuff for this project that will probably happen this middle of shit. When are we gonna launch that? Are you you're still in the middle of doing it, right?
Yeah, I am. Almost
Okay,
done.
so yeah, God, we're bursting at the seams with Alpha. So we have that thing coming out soon-ish. And while we were doing like the recording for that and everything, he was like, hey, try this garlic thing. No, and I was like, I don't really like condiments. Then I give it a try. I give it a try and I just like my taste buds went to Flavor Town. I ascended. I had an out of body experience. Especially for people who like Filipino food, like oh my god. And now I have successfully evangelized and shared that condiment with every person I talk to on like a day-to-day basis. Like my sister loves it, my dad likes it, like my hot pot friends like it. Yeah, we spread the gospel together. So yeah, happy not birthday.
Thank you. Not thank you.
Not thank you. All 33 of you in the audience, make sure to greet Vinny a happy not birthday. Pretty soon, actually. There will be some benefits staying after the AMA. You will get a GP. I wonder what GP is. I guess you'll find out in a couple weeks. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.